Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. It's great to see and have you guys joining us. It looks like a beautiful day across most of Western Canada. Yeah, and it certainly sounds like we're going to have some summer weather coming up in the next week or so. So today, I'm pleased to share with you results from 20 years of research at the Judy Creek Mixedwood Experiment site located at Judy Creek. Okay, so my name is Phil Comeau. I'm Professor Emeritus at the University of Alberta, retired from the U of A, officially in 2017, sort of almost semi-finally in 2020, and I'm still working. I don't live in Edmonton. I live on the West Coast. Have lived there since 2017. So anyway, so for the next 40 minutes or so, we'll talk about what we've found after 20 years of work at Judy Creek. Oops, can I just see if what's going on here? It's not, slides aren't advancing. I do it manually. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that the Judy Creek study area is located in the ancestral lands of several First Nations and also the homeland of Métis people. And I'm grateful, I gratefully acknowledge that I've been privileged to work on the ancestral territories of many First Nations and Métis people through my career. Anyway, so today, what I'd like to talk about or introduce again in regards to Judy Creek is the idea of using spot treatments. They provide an option for reestablishing or managing mixed wood stands, which are in contrast to broadcast herbicide or brushing treatments, which attempt to remove most of the broadleaf. So spot treatments, if we plant and tend to moderate density of spruce using spot treatments around individual spruce, we can maintain a matrix here with the pointer of aspen around a treated spot. Okay, at this age, it looks incredibly sparse, but in fact, measurements after this is one of the treatments at Judy Creek, indicate that we did in fact leave half of the ground, 50% of the ground roughly, in aspen. Okay, and a lot of some of the tiny aspen in these trail areas actually have grown up to be fairly large. Okay, so the idea is to establish a moderate density and then spot treat those. So for Judy Creek, the decision was to establish 400 spruce and treat a 2-meter radius around those individual spruce, which would give us about 50% in spruce and 50% in aspen. So 5 research questions comprise this study. So can we first off recreate mixed wood stands or maintain mixed wood stands using spot treatments? Can we increase yields or shorten rotations through follow-up thinning of the aspen that remains in this untreated matrix around the spruce? Can we improve spruce growth by controlling vegetation to different extents? Do we benefit more from controlling everything, or do we get sufficient benefit from controlling only the woody? Okay. Fourth, is spruce growth improved using 4 years of complete control versus 2 in a radial treatment setting? Okay, so does a more aggressive removal of vegetation improve spruce growth? And fifth, can we achieve similar results using spot treatments as we would expect with broadcast herbicide treatments? Okay, the study site is located in central Alberta, northeast of Whitecourt. So Whitecourt's over here somewhere, right near there. And Judy Creek is up to the northeast of Whitecourt in an area on the edge of the Swan Hills in Alberta. The study site was logged in early 2002, and treatments were initiated during the spring and summer of 2002. The plots were planted in the spring of 2003. Okay, the study team included Doug Pitt from CFS, Sault Ste. Marie, Milam Halevich from Alberta, consultant with at the time with Integrated Forest Technologies, Dan McIsaac with the CFS, and myself. Michael Hupting joined us partway through the 20 years of the study, and Susan Humphreys was involved pretty much since the beginning. And then a list of many others who've contributed over time, who've helped with establishment, with measurements, with funding, and various other contributions to the study. Okay, so Doug Pitt, I should mention, Doug Pitt led the project through to about 2016, when he retired from the CFS and has gone off to do other things. So the study initially had 8 vegetation control treatments listed here. So BC broadcast complete, which was annual removal of woody and herbaceous vegetation using glyphosate herbicide. So it was 1,600 white spruce planted originally, and 3 replications of that treatment. So this N over here indicates how many replicates of the particular treatments we have. A BW, which is annual removal of woody vegetation. So that used triclopyr, removal of woody vegetation, which involved use of triclopyr, release herbicide, and initially. And we'll see the outcome of that in a few minutes. Again, with 1,600 stems per hectare of spruce, broadcast herbaceous, which is an oddball treatment that I don't recommend you try operationally, but involved leaving the aspen alone, leaving the aspen standing, but controlling the understory herbaceous vegetation using glyphosate herbicide, again with 1,600 stems per hectare. The broadcast and untreated, which is basically planted spruce with no vegetation control. That's essentially the control for spruce. Okay, there's a contrasting VA, which was broadcast aspen, which had no spruce planted and was just left, so it's another control treatment. Okay, then 3 radial treatments at this stage: radial woody control, removal of the woody using triclopyr, RC2 and RC4, which were radial complete control in the 2 meter radius spots for 2 years using glyphosate, and radial complete control for 4 years using glyphosate. Okay, you see large numbers of replications here. That was done intentionally, so we could thin some of the plots at some point going forward with the study. Here's the plot layout. The radial treatments were established in 45 meter by 45 meter treatment plots. And the broadcast treatments were established in slightly smaller treatment plots, 35 meters by 35 meters. This was done so we could accommodate all these treatments and replicates within the study site. And even then, we couldn't completely replicate everything. So it's a big enough study as it is. So yeah, so slightly smaller sizes, but everything was pretty well randomized. Treatments were randomly assigned to locations across the site. Within the treatment plots, we have measurement plots. In both cases, the measurement plots were 25 meters by 25 meters, with 25 tag spruce in the radial treatments and 100 tag spruce in the broadcast treatments. These grayish circles indicate the areas where aspen crop trees were assessed over time. So we picked potential aspen crop tree in each measurement. That's there, and vegetation assessments were completed in these 4 plots located in this weird pattern in order to get a representative sample of treated and untreated ground. So it was a balanced sample. Okay, so yeah, so that's roughly the layout of the plots. Okay. Then in 2010, we decided to thin at age 10. Original plan had been to thin at about age 5, but we had a serious hailstorm happen in about the third year that caused a fair bit of damage to the aspen. We decided to wait until the aspen recovered, and it was looking good and healthy and really well established by age 10. So thinning was applied at age 10 rather than earlier. And for these kind of studies, if things worked right, thinning could easily be applied earlier and might change the results a little bit. So we ended up with 17 treatments after thinning. So those original broadcast treatments, then the radial treatments were split into four densities: 800, 1200, 2000, or unthinned. And this is kind of the coding. RC2U is unthinned, 2 years of broadcast of radial complete control. Okay, RC2 800 thinned, the same one thinned to 800. 1200 was the thinning to 1200, and 2000 was thinning to 2000. Okay, same for RC4 and same for radial woody control. Okay, number of replicates looks weird, it bounces all over the place. This is designed to try to get to set us up so we have enough reps to contrast differences between densities and the differences between treatments by pooling and comparing things in various different ways. Okay, so it works. Be nice to have 3 replicates for everything, but that wasn't possible. No. Here's the final map of the study layout. So if you ever go out there, you park up here. Sorry, I'm pointing to the wrong image. You park up here. There's a gate here. Okay, and then you can walk in and through the site. And I think several of you have been out there on various tours that we've had over the years to see the study site. A couple of plots highlighted in yellow. They haven't been included in most of the analysis because they tended to be a little wetter than everybody else. And in portions of these plots, particularly this lower side, we had poor survival of spruce and some poor growth and survival of aspen. Just a little wet and boggy down in here because it's quite wet down in the area in between. Okay, so one of the joys of establishing an experiment of this scale with all of these plots is trying to keep everything as similar as possible so that we don't have too many uncontrolled sources of variation. But there is always site variation when you have an experiment that covers 3 or 4 hectares in area. And it gets to be a challenge to keep everything consistent. So despite our doing a pre-harvest evaluation of ecosites across the study site, there were some interesting changes that happened after the harvesting. All right, so some early results. First set of results. One of the things we noted in the third year of the study was substantial. We had a substantial winter injury occurrence following January, February of 2005. So what happened was we had some thaw events happen. I think we had 3 or 4 major thaw events happen in January and February, followed by plunging down to sub-zero temperatures, with the worst happening in February, where in mid-February temperatures had reached 5 to 10 degrees for a few days, and then plunged down into the -20s for a week or 2 after that. And the result in the summer was that in certain treatments, the spruce tops were fried, and they were essentially dead. We had some trees where we only had 1 little green bud barely visible on the lower part of the stem. In field assessments, we thought they were dead and gone, only to discover. And then the subsequent spring, we put we planted new trees next to them, in anticipating that we would lose a lot of trees, and we wanted to maintain the study. So so it looked pretty bad, but turned out not to be so bad. We had injury concentrated in the broadcast complete and broadcast woody control, and little injury where we had aspen in either the untreated or in the radial treatment. So having that aspen 2 meters away in those spot treatments almost eliminated winter injury, as did having an intact aspen canopy over top. Okay. Yeah, so not to despair. Spruce is an amazing survivor, as many of us realize. It is designed to survive. And in 2008, here's what some of these spruce look like. They're a little bushy, but we've got a leader, and it's survived and it's doing okay. Okay, so some more on the winter injury shortly. Some photos. Sorry about this one, the untreated. There's a spruce back in here near that pink flag somewhere. Yeah, but here we have a typical situation where when spruce is planted and we have aspen regeneration, and it's just left to its own devices. Okay, this unusual treatment where we controlled the understory, herbaceous vegetation, and left the aspen standing. And here we see one of the better spruce. They're not all like that, but a few good spruce in that one. As of age 8. Okay. Woody removal, radial. So here we have the 2 meter treated spot, a spruce in the middle, and surrounding matrix of aspen. Okay, there's another spot up in here, just up in here, that we can see. So that's woody. Okay, we can still see evidence at age 8 of a fair bit of calamagrostis here, as together with fireweed and some other stuff. Okay, radial 4 years of complete control with vision herbicide here, sort of 4 years after the cessation of treatments. Okay, we have a nice treated spot with nice vigorous looking spruce and some fireweed and some birch popping in there that's still hanging in there, or that's recovered. And the broadcast complete control. Okay, so here at age 8, okay, we're seeing there's a little bit of grass, and it eventually became an equisetum and hawkweed field for a while. So at age 8, so I should note here that this treatment involved repeated directed application of glyphosate herbicide to try to provide almost complete control of all non-spruce vegetation in the plots. Okay, so up through age 9. So herbicide treatment was occurring. The grass continued to survive. Part of the reason for that was we were avoiding spraying the spruce, so there was always some grass roots under the spruce that seemed to egress outwards from the untreated areas. Yeah, so but pretty thorough control, much greater than would typically occur with an operational herbicide treatment. The broadcast woody control, we effectively using triclopyr, early triclopyr treatment. So this was only done, the triclopyr treatment was only done once pre-planting. And not repeated, but any woody vegetation that developed, and there wasn't much, was cut with hand clippers. Anyway, the outcome: triclopyr released the calamagrostis. Some years, at about age 6, the spruce was buried in calamagrostis, and we thought it was going to be big trouble, a big problem. So okay, and yeah. And we know that calamagrostis will compete with both spruce and aspen. Okay, so we created an interesting situation on a close to mesic site where we had a field of calamagrostis. Okay, coupled with some nice rainy years that helped the calamagrostis continue on. At age 20, things have evolved. Things are different. The broadcast, don't show a broadcast woody, but the calamagrostis is much lower in abundance, much less. It's lost its vigor. Here's the broadcast herbicide, broadcast complete. Okay, we've got, in many areas, we've got crown closure of the spruce. We've got large spruce. Here's a spot woody control with the thinning of the surrounding the aspen matrix. Okay, we see a nice large spruce in this particular case. One of my random photographs. Haha, it's not random. There, it's of course selected to highlight the point that we do have some nice spruce in there. And the untreated here, one of, as we'll see in a second, one of those spruce that's hard to find. So here, the spruce planted and the plot left untreated, left for the aspen and the understory to develop. Okay, we've got this scrawny poor little spruce here. And most of them are quite small. Okay, so let's start off with thinking about the trend, what happens to aspen densities in the untreated and in some of the other treatments. So right off, the radial treatments reduced aspen density. Sorry, I'm pointing the wrong place again. Radial treatments substantially reduced aspen density. So here is the unthinned. Here is our RX 800 radial with 800 thinned to 800, okay, before thinning, and then thinned at age 10. Radial thinned to 1200, and down to age 10. Radial to 2000, the yellow one here. Okay, self-thinning down to age 10. Okay, and the radial unthinned is shown in green, self-thinning to age 10, and then continuing to self-thin to age 20. Okay, so one thing interesting to note, well, I've got you looking at the radial unthinned, is that at age 20, the control plot and the radial unthinned plot have converged to very similar densities. Okay, where the thinning at age 10 has dramatically reduced the densities. So aspen density at age 20. The unthinned radial treatments had similar aspen density to the untreated at age 20. Just yeah, marginally significant. You can see there's obviously a little bit of difference. So here's radial 2, radial 4, radial unthinned, radial woody, unthinned. So that's what these labels refer to. So maybe I should just go through these quickly for you. So the pure aspen plot, the BA, the BC, the broadcast complete, which has no aspen, or virtually no aspen. The broadcast herbaceous control. So that plot, those plots where the aspen were there, but we attempted to control the understory. And effectively did so. The untreated, the untreated control there. Okay, broadcast woody has a little bit of aspen. Okay, radial control for 2 years to thin to 1200. Radial control 2 years thin to 2000. 2 years thin to 800. 2 years unthinned. Okay, radial control 4 to 1200, 4 to 2000, 4 to 800, and 4 unthinned, and woody control only 1200, 2800 unthinned. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so this one versus these guys, yeah, the radial are slightly lower, but because of the variation, they turn out not to be significantly lower in density. BH, BN, BH, and BA aren't different. Okay, although there is a bit of a trend. It's just random variation between plots. There's no difference between 2 years, 4 years, or radial woody control for the radial treatments. Okay, so these guys don't differ significantly. And thinning, as you would expect, reduced aspen densities quite dramatically to going down to the target densities. Okay, aspen basal area, it really just reflects those shifts in densities, and we get essentially the same results. Aspen top height. So when you're analyzing thinning experiments, it's not usually a good idea to take the overall average of all the aspen that are in the measurement plots, because as soon as if you use all those aspen, thinning itself by virtue of something I call the chainsaw effect, changes average height and average DBH. So, if you're thinning from below, your lowest treatment target densities will end up having the biggest trees because you removed all the small stuff. So so it makes it complicated to interpret the results. So it's usually more informative to just take a certain number of the biggest trees. And in this case, I selected the top 400 trees. I call them top 400. They're not top height trees, which would be the top 100. So it's nice to have a few more than 100. So before thinning at age 10, treatments had no significant effect on even the average height. But at age 20, what's happening here? Okay, at age 20, the aspen was taller in the broadcast herbaceous control treatment. So interesting outcome that controlling the understory vegetation improved aspen growth. So if you ever want to try it, go for it. Probably not enough to give us any real long-term benefits. But otherwise, we've got variation, but there was no real effect of treatments or of thinnings on aspen. Height of the largest 400 aspen trees per hectare. So treatment, and that's kind of consistent with what we expect from most thinning studies. DBH shows a little bit more variation, as one would expect. So at age 10, the radial complete controls 2 and 4 were significantly larger in diameter at 15 centimeters, and then basically the aspen, the plots with natural aspen densities. Okay, so DBH was improved by radial treatments. At age 20, the unthinned radial treatments, okay, these guys, okay, were bigger than the aspen areas where aspen had been left untended. Okay, thinning in the radial treatments led to an overall 30% increase in aspen DBH. So not surprising, and that's for the top 400 aspen. Again, to emphasize that. So thinned versus unthinned is significant, but there was no difference amongst the 3 thinning densities. So between the 800, 1200, and 2000. Okay, there are trends that you can see here. 800 the lowest. I apologize, these aren't in order, but 800, 1200, and 2000. So this one doesn't work quite right. And this one also, the order's a bit messed up, which is the cause for the lack of differences. There's more variability out there than the signal in terms of thinning treatment effects 10 years after thinning. Okay, so no differences between the radial complete 2, radial complete 4, and the radial woody treatments in terms of aspen diameters, so the top diameters. Spruce survival, some interesting trends. I already alluded to this in terms of the frost winter injury problem. Okay, so spruce survival, we see some dramatic trends in the first 10 years. Broadcast the control is not looking too bad, but from 10 to 20, we see a dramatic decline in spruce survival, the percentage of planted spruce that are surviving. So survival in the first 10 years was lowest in the broadcast woody control. So Calamagrostis was causing its a substantial reduction in survival. That coupled with winter injury. Okay, the broadcast complete, okay, is in blue here. So again, it was showing relatively low survival, certainly up through about age 7, and then it crosses over the broadcast herbaceous. Okay. Radial treatments and the untreated show the best survival up to about age 10. Okay, and then things start to change with the untreated showing this decline. The thinned radial treatments showing the best survival, and the unthinned radial treatment showing a decline in survival that's quite substantial after age 15 or so. Okay, so suggesting a bunch of interesting things going on, right? So there's something happening here. So it's a combination of aspen competition. So our aspen basal areas, aspen amounts of aspen are reaching critical levels, so causing a downward trend in spruce survival in the unthinned radial and in the control plots. So dramatic changes, and we also see that here. It's almost a straight line over time. Okay, so one of the things that happened was in 2009. So what's that, year 7, which is when we start seeing some things change in terms of spruce survival in the untreated here. BN, I apologize for the change in labels. So BN, the untreated control, and BH, the broadcast herbicide treatment, broadcast woody control, radio woody control, radio complete control for 4 years, and broadcast complete control. So hair damage was substantial in the untreated and in the broadcast herbaceous control. So red is showing the percentage of trees suffering terminal damage to the terminal leader, damage to the top, loss of the top, and the green is showing percent damage to lateral branches and stems. Okay, so browsing by these guys was substantial. Here's what one of the trees looked like at age 20 in the untreated, in the BN treatment. Okay, so caused huge reductions in a large amount of damage, and it also led to subsequent reductions in survival after age 8. Okay, so as browsing was repeated. Okay, why the browsing damage? Number one, the spruce in BH and BN were generally less than 1.5 meters in height. Okay, so the hair were able to get the tops when there was enough snowpack on the ground. So they're hopping around in the snowpack, and the spruce are the only green thing other than aspen bark that they could eat. So they preferentially get them and can cause a substantial amount of damage. So all of the other treatments, the spruce are quite large. So they're in excess, they're exceeding 2.5 meters in height. They're way too tall for the bunnies to get. Okay, so a little bit of lateral damage gets picked up like this, but it really has very little impact on the spruce. May even be beneficial, because in some cases it looked like the hair were helping to prune the lower branches on the spruce in those situations. So yeah, hair damage remained high for a few years, but it seems to it comes and goes. Some years are worse than others. So yeah, so size I mentioned. The other thing is the presence of a continuous aspen canopy overhead provides protection of the hair from predators like owls and hawks. So it's very, very difficult for an owl to hunt in the understory of a high density aspen stand. Okay, so spruce survival. So at age 20, this is what we're seeing. So spruce survival in the untreated plot is incredibly low, and everybody else basically has much higher. All the other treatments basically have much higher survival. The herbaceous treatment improved, the herbaceous control improved survival over the untreated. We get decent survival despite winter injury in the broadcast complete and broadcast woody. And then overall, the radial treatments are providing even better levels of survival. And thinning treatments have increased survival compared to unthinned. yeah, so height trends here. In the interest of time, I won't belabor this, but here we see in blue the spruce, in green the aspen. Okay, the spruce in the untreated, the solid blue line. Okay, now compared to the aspen in the untreated. Yeah, so and then all the radial treatments and the broadcast complete control treatments. And the broadcast woody treatment, are all showing improved height growth trends. Okay, and yeah, let's leave it at that. Diameters, trends for their diameter are shown in this graph, a little bit simpler than some of the others. So yeah, so we can see the broadcast complete control is giving us the largest diameters throughout the 20 years. The broadcast woody dashed blue line here is coming along close to the radial thinned. The radial unthinned tracks close for the first 10 years, close to the others for the first 10 years, and then we see that it's tracking lower than the thinned or the broadcast woody, and then the unthinned. Okay, and it's interesting that that DBH flatlined between age 15, between age 15 and 20. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that trends out further on. So this is consistent with the work of Vic Liefers and Brad Pino that show that aspen competition is probably at its most intense somewhere between ages 20 and 30, and maybe a little earlier sometimes. Okay, so ages 15 to 30. Yeah, and that's where we're kind of seeing evidence of that, coupled with hair browsing the spruce. Okay, I'll just skip over that one in the interest of time. Spruce diameters at age 20. The broadcast and radial treatments that removed aspen and other vegetation gave us through almost 4 times the spruce diameter at age 20 compared to the herbaceous control only and the untreated, the BN. Okay, so those guys are just much smaller. Spruce and those are much smaller. The broadcast complete control is about 26% bigger than all these radial treatments, and also about 26% bigger than the broadcast woody, and that's statistically significant. The radial complete and the radial woody treatments don't differ significantly. 4 years and 2 years of complete radial control don't give us any difference. In fact, they're virtually the same. Thinning did increase DBH spruce diameters, but again, no difference between the 3 densities that with thinning, so 3 thin densities. Okay, so though the untreated is smaller. Okay, but again a 39% increase in spruce diameter as a result of thinning. Oh, yeah. So what are the potential so we got age 20 results, so some interesting stuff. So what are the potential longer term implications? So I used MGM 21 to project these stands out to some real potential rotation ages. So the simulations were initiated using data from the age 20 measurements. Okay, since some of the treatments, since the radial complete woody and woody treatments were the same, they were aggregated. So this gives us nice replication of the various treatment densities that were created. Okay, deciduous culmination age range for this range, if we look at volume versus age trends, a range between 40 and 55 years with an average of about 46 years. For simplicity, shown the results assuming harvest age of 55 for a commercial thinning entry or understory protection type entry at age 55 with aspen regenerating after that entry. So here we have growth of both regenerating aspen and of some of the aspen that are left behind. Okay, and yeah, and the spruce were grown out to their culmination ages, so with volumes there associated with the different culmination ages. Okay, so aspen volumes at age 55 range between 200, about 200 and 300 cubic meters per hectare. They were highest in the pure aspen stand, second highest. So yeah. So in the BA, the unthinned, the untreated, BN and BH. So those three are running with the highest aspen volumes. They have the highest aspen densities. Okay, the radial treatments here in green here. So the 1200 and the 2000 thinning densities are running there. The 800 is substantially lower down here. Okay, and yeah, so those are in the okay. Where am I going here? There, get that back. Yeah, conifer volumes. So spruce culmination age occurs at about age 75 in the broadcast complete control, okay, about age 85 in the broadcast woody control. So, so complete control, the accelerated, shortened culmination ages. Okay, and then growing spruce in the radial treatments gave us longer time to culmination, as well as lower spruce volumes. So yeah, so these are the green are the radial treatments. Okay, the dotted line is the untreated control. Okay, so despite aspen removal at 55, we've got that's fairly gradual development of spruce volume. Okay, the broadcast herbaceous a little bit better because we have more spruce and it's bigger at age 55. We still, but though we didn't fully achieve culmination age by 120 in these two treatments. Okay, so easier to look at MAIs to get an idea of the trends. So spruce MAI was largest for the broadcast complete control. So spruce conifer MAI is shown in the blue bars with white dots. Aspen deciduous MAI is shown in the bars with the green stripes. Okay, so if you can tell the difference. So the green stripes, the blue with the white dots. Okay, so spruce MAI. Largest in the BC and BW, smaller in radial and broadcast herbaceous control treatments, and smallest in the BN, and there's no spruce in the BA. So that happens. So aspen MAI. So aspen MAI was driven largely by aspen density and effects of competition from spruce. So as spruce grows into the canopy and after the understory protection harvest, then and the spruce does have a suppressive effect on the aspen. So the presence of spruce and the vigor of the spruce affects aspen MAIs. Okay, so one of the other things that's happening here is this huge range in the numbers of surviving spruce, particularly in relation to yields in the untreated situation where we have spruce. Dense stocking is very poor from age 20 onwards, and it's lowish in the broadcast herbaceous, and it is a bit low even in the radial treatments. Okay, so adjusting for that, I did another set of simulations and to look at MAIs if we have better spruce densities. And the other thing that I did was I doubled the spruce densities in the radial treatment. So 400 spruce is pretty low stocking. So here in this particular situation, I doubled it to 800 spruce, and I assumed the survival didn't go below 75% in the untreated. Okay, and I don't show the herbaceous control here, because it didn't want to make assumptions about that one. Okay, so results. Yeah, so other than assuming better spruce survival, I assume that outcome stage 20 would be the same. So despite a 1.4 meter, I'm assuming that a 1.4 meter radius treatment would give the same results as a 2 meter radius treatment. That may be a slight stretch. So perhaps overestimating spruce yields a bit, but we have more spruce, and that hopefully will make up for some of the losses. It's interesting to note that, as with other simulations, the similar cases we've done with MGM, across the board, we get very similar total MEIs, and what these various treatments do is just adjust the distribution of total stand volume between spruce and aspen. Okay, so the untreated with spruce planted, we get just the roughly 3.5 cubic meters of aspen per hectare per year, and 3 and 2.25, 2.5 cubic meters per hectare per year of spruce. Okay, we and in the unthinned, it is quite similar to that. So in the radial unthinned, quite similar. Thinning of the aspen, reducing the aspen density, gives us a boost in spruce volumes and spruce MEIs. Okay, and of course, removing the aspen completely with broadcast treatments gives us substantial increases in spruce volumes. So the broadcast woody is not far behind the broadcast complete control in this case, nor was it far behind in the other slide. So by way of conclusions, removing overtopping aspen led in the broadcast treatments led to significant increase in winter injury in 2005, but this was not huge, and 2 years later most trees recovered. So very little lasting impact. So despite it happening and despite it looking severe at the time, we noticed it by virtue of going out there the spring and summer after it happened. If we left it for 2 or 3 years, we would have seen bushy trees with multiple tops, but we would have not been cued into what had actually happened. Removal of aspen alone in the broadcast woody control treatment did release calamagrostis for about 5 years or longer, but did result in a long-term improvement of spruce growth that we see at age 20. And it's the growth size of the trees is similar to that in the radial treatments. Spruce height in the broadcast complete and radial treatments was 8 times that of the untreated control at the end of 20 years, and spruce diameters were 3 times that of untreated. So treatments, either broadcast or radial spot treatments, improved the growth and increased the size of the spruce at age 20. 2 years versus 4 years of radial complete control showed some differences early on in the study, but the effects disappeared. The differences have disappeared over time. Partly just the ravages of time causing variation in the study, but also just they're not the outcomes simply not big enough to show differences. Radial control treatments resulted in increased growth of aspen and spruce, while also providing frost and winter injury protection and providing for improved growth of spruce compared to the untreated. So spruce were bigger, and they didn't suffer the hair damage in those radial control treatments. So, a number of benefits. So the MGM projections show spruce MEI is going to be best in the glyphosate type treatments, broadcast treatments. Pretty good in the broadcast woody treatments, not far behind. About 3, so a little, almost half of the broadcast complete. In a situation where we have 400 planted spruce per hectare in the radial treatments. Aspen MEI averaged 2.8 in radial treatments to 4 in the untreated, and 10 in a pure aspen stand. Okay, bumping up the spruce densities increased spruce yields in the radial treatments, which were increased further with thinnings. In summary, these spot treatments can effectively improve early survival and growth of white spruce, and the study demonstrates that quite clearly by controlling aspen, shrubs, herbs, and grasses, and adding pre-commercial thinning at some point in time to those radial treatments can provide additional increases in growth of both aspen and white spruce. So before I leave, I need to acknowledge a number of people. I'm grateful to FRIA for funding remeasurements, and FRIA funds recently were provided through West Fraser. Several companies have supported this study, including Blue Ridge Lumber, Canfor, Dow AgroSciences, and Monsanto, the Alberta Herbicide Task Force, the Canadian Centres for Ecology, the Alberta Mixed Management Association, Western Boreal Growth and Yield Association, and FRIA. Have all supported the project. CFS, NSERC, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, and the Spray Efficacy Research Group, University of Alberta, and a number of individuals. So thank you, everyone. And I think we have a few minutes for questions.